Aside from just the turbo and the camshaft, we have every intention on converting this Trailblazer SS to run on E85. So the fuel demand is going to go way up, and for that we need a better flowing fuel pump. There are dual and triple pump solutions out there. For our part, for this stage of the build, we're just going to install a 450 liter per hour pump, and we're going to upgrade the fuel line from the pump to the engine. We were going to try to modify the fuel sender he had in the Trailblazer, but when we get it out and we get it apart, we see that it is eaten up with rust. So we got a new pump, and we're going to modify that to hold the 450 liter per hour pump. And then we'll worry about how we're going to modify the line. First up is the pump. So we're going to start with a Bosch fuel pump assembly. Brand new. We need to take the bucket off the pump. We'll take the float off so it doesn't get hurt on the sender while we're messing with this. And there we go. This is our old pump, our new pump that we're not going to use. Take the sock off. There's one. There's two. And I think we're actually going to change this whole hose. Yeah. So we're okay to cut this off. You want to be careful with it. And then this pump will just slide up and out. There we go. And here's the Bosch pump. Nice. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the Bosch pump is using a TI automotive pump. That's nice. TI Automotive is Walbro. They're the same company. And they're just a good pump to have. We want this pump to go in this bucket. The 450 liter per hour pump install kit comes with it comes with an install kit that we got that we could use this filter with it. But the reality is, we could also use this filter that goes in the pump housing. Yeah. Okay. So really, we're just going to cut this right up to the top. And that should get us all the one we need. All right, and that's what we're cutting off. Garbage. Let me get the blowgun. The dual and triple pump solutions, a lot of times they get rid of the bucket that they sit in that collects fuel. and they end up having a slosh issue, because the tanks aren't really baffled anymore. They just have this bucket. So as the fuel sloshes back and forth, the bucket collects the fuel and holds it in the bucket. It's always trying to pick up fuel anytime it comes forward or back. So there's always this sump that holds fuel inside of it, which makes up for the baffled tanks that we used to have. And sometimes the double and triple pump solutions, they just ignore that and they don't have that. And I guess they still work. I won't say they don't work, but sadly, and I will say sadly, because it is, the install kit comes with these things. I won't use those. I will use these or these. These are, I can't believe the install kit comes with these. This is like a little radiator hose or a heater hose, coolant hose. These are actual fuel injection clamps. They'll give you a good clamp all the way around the whole circle. And that's what we want. So we'll put this on, then we'll put this on. And we'll just tighten the clamp down on it. Pump is in. It's installed into the hanger. And there's a couple of other things I like to do to modify the sender for the higher flow rate. One of those things is I like to modify this bucket. Okay, the bucket has a small little valve that lets fuel in from the bottom. I like to take a file, very, very carefully push this valve out so I don't hurt it. And then I use the valve to draw a circle around it and understand how big the valve can be. And then I use my files and I open each of these three pieces all the way to the very edge. So it'll let a little bit more fuel in. I've also taken my files and I filed in between these just so that when it's sitting on the ground, it can actually let more fuel come in faster. And now we will very carefully reassemble the valve. There, and the valve is in. Fuel pump, I did not use the sock that was in here. The sock that is in here has a smaller limiter in the bottom for this plastic base to let fuel in on the inside. And the one that comes with that you get for the 450 liter per hour pump, it's got bigger channels inside to let fuel flow from the sock into the bottom of the pump. So I didn't use this one. I used the one that came with the install kit. Going back together, we need to line everything up. There is a guide that goes right in here on the inside that we need to line up. And then it just pushes together. 1, 2. And now our pump is completely sealed back together. Then we need to get our float needs to go back on. We've connected our hose from the pump back to the regulator assembly. We have a fuel injection clamp on both. And something else that I like to do is, because of the amount of higher flow that we don't get that for nothing, right? The higher flow rate comes at the cost of a greater amp draw. These pumps, they draw a couple more amps. So one thing that I like to do is I like to cut the power and ground wires from the plug and run them both to each other, power and ground, just to the power. I'll do the same on the outside of the plug on the harness. And then I drill a small hole right through the lid next to the plug. I take a bolt and a nut. I attach my ground to them, and then I'll feed them up in through the lid. Before those go in, put a little bit of sealer on it, just to make sure we don't have any leaks, vapor leaks or anything else coming out of the tank. It's important that it's a tight fit going through the lid. I don't like to have threads in them because I want the bolt to be tight down here. I guess maybe if I had a stud that was going in on both sides, I wouldn't care, but... And then the nut on this side needs to be tight. And that's that. Now on this side, on the top side, I'll take a nice little 10 gauge ground wire. I'll attach my ground wire here. And this will be the pump ground. And this will, both of these going through the pins will be power. This way, the pump can handle the greater amp draw. I'm always afraid that if I increase the amp need of the pump, I might burn these pins, or I might just expand the spring fitting on the pins. And I'm always worried about that, so I like to upgrade that. And then I'll connect them. I actually have two wires here. There's one strap that grounds the springs. And then there's one strap that grounds the pump. I've made separate connections for each. Okay. And then here's one for the pump. Inside the lid, I'm using 12 gauge wire for the ground. Outside of the lid, I'll be using 10 gauge. Okay, there's one. There. I'm only using the torch on this because it's brand new and has never seen fuel. If you're just modifying a pump in a hanger that you pulled out of a tank, this would be a very bad idea. And now we're ready to get that together. Float needs to go back on. And there's one last thing that I'm going to do for this. We're going to fix the lines. We're going to change the fuel line, right? The fuel feed line follows up the tank. It's a small diameter, small inside diameter. It's a smaller line, and it has a lot of bends in it and a lot of kinks and turns. So I'm going to try seeing if we can make this work. Bam. I got to make sure I got enough clearance for it. I think I do. And this will let us use a nice 8AN transportation line. Obviously not this one. We'll get one that's the length that we need to go. But in theory, the idea is to get a one of these feed lines like this, have it run up the side of the tank and go straight up to the motor, and then we'll put one of these, put this fitting on the fuel rail, and we'll just have one nice big beefy 8AN. It's almost, it's a big diameter. I think it's like 11/32 or something, or 3/8 or something inside diameter, not outside. And it'll flow more, but also it won't have any kinks or bends in it. So whatever this pump is capable of doing, will make it directly to the rail. And we have big 120-pound fuel injectors, so even as the pressure starts coming down, the injectors can still keep feeding. They'll have a lot more on the top end just to keep opening up the pulse width. And if need be, we'll throw in a booster pump. And that's it. This pump is now ready to go, ready to be installed. First up, we have a new seal to go on. This is the line we seek to replace, by the way. To demonstrate the difference between these two lines, the ID of the 8AN is bigger than the OD of the feed line. See that? Fits inside of it. This will handle a little bit more flow rate. So here is our pump. And the pump goes in. And I should just scoot straight down. Once the pump is in, the block ring on. Some people use an impact for it. I don't have the actual wrench. So I'll do it the fun way. You just make sure that you're not digging into the tank. And now this will lead out and on the side of the tank, so that hopefully we can miss this whole channel where there are some bends in the factory line. And we'll just run it up along the side of the drive shaft. And that's it. We could reconnect this if we wanted to. And our gas tank is ready to go back in, making sure that we connect our ground. I like to leave a little bit of slack, so I'll run it around here and then over the frame. I'll get a zip tie, I'll zip tie it to the lid just as a strain relief. And that's it. When we go back together, it's important that we do on the harness exactly what we did inside of the tank, and then we take the power and the grounds, cut them free from the plug, and join them both into just the power wire. And I probably won't even use the ground wire in the harness. I will probably just use the ground. I'll probably ground this right to the frame. And then I'll also probably upgrade the ground wire from the battery to the frame, or from the battery to the body, or from the body to the frame. I'll make sure that there is a upgraded capacity from the battery ground to the frame to be able to support the beefier fuel pump ground. And that's about it. This is also a really good setup if we decide we want to run a booster pump later on down the road. We won't have to worry about expanding pins or anything else like that, and it'll be ready to take it. Once this truck gets used to running at the boost levels that he is, if we run out of fuel, then that's exactly what it's probably going to get. It will be boost a pump before we get the 2 or 3 fuel pump solution. And we'll probably run that until we kill this pump, and then at that point we'll worry about a dual or a triple pump or whatever. And that does it for this video. Our fuel pump is ready to go back in the Trailblazer, and the gas tank is ready to be filled up with E85.